It's just one of the worst, weird lines and bulges galore. I mean, like, it was just out of control. Perfectly, as if it were worn on the outside of the garment. You might as well have. Very clearly, that is not a normal boob. Terrible, terrible judgment. She traumatized the people of New Zealand. The difference between polished and messy is often invisible. It's not the dress. It's not the designer. It's rarely even the price tag. It's what's happening underneath the clothing. Catherine the Princess of Wales is a really, really good example of this. But other British royal women and some other women in the public eye seem to understand something that a lot of people, most people, I would argue, overlook. And that is that undergarments are architecture. They are the foundation to your outfit. And when that architecture fails, the entire outfit collapses. When we look at photos of Catherine the Princess of Wales at engagements, rarely, if ever, I don't think we ever really have seen visible lines, pulling and gaping or bunching or strap issues happening. The finish is clean. The fabric skims the body properly. The tailoring looks very intentional, and that level of polish does not happen by accident. When you contrast this with moments where Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, was photographed with visible bra lines, cookie cutter bra, strap outlines, wrinkling from tension underneath the outfit, or foundation garments showing up through lighter fabrics, for example, or messes like these. The issue isn't morality, nor is it a matter of preference. Engineering. Royal dressing involves seamless underlayers, proper shapewear where needed, structured slips, hem weights, strategic tailoring, and sometimes custom foundation garments for specific silhouettes. Without these things, undergarment miscalculations in particular can distort the tailoring, pull the fabric off balance, where you get pulling and bunching and wrinkling in weird places. It can make luxury materials look inexpensive, and it can turn what would have otherwise been a minimalistic look into complete and utter mess. It really, overall, drags the entire look down and makes it look very, very amateur. And that's why it matters so much more for people who are in the public eye than it does for day-to-day stuff. For us, the day-to-day, it really matters most when we're doing something really important where we want to ensure our confidence is at its maximum, or when we're going to be making memories that we really care about. I'm talking like weddings, graduation ceremonies, big like events in your family or get-togethers. Maybe you have like annual photos you take. Those are the times where this matters for most of us. Or like interviews or something. Or if you are someone who is occasionally like in media, photographed or on TV or something, doing interviews. Like these are the times where it really matters. That every single day-to-day, it's not always the most important, but there's definitely going to be a lot of tips and tricks in here that can make your everyday outfits feel a lot more beautiful, finished properly, polished, and that in turn builds our confidence. But when you're in a role like Catherine, Princess of Wales, or Meghan, who, is sort of inserting herself into the public eye, either way, if you're in any sort of a role that demands visual precision, those small details become amplified in high-resolution photography and video. So in today's video, we're going to break down why undergarments matter more than people realize, the specific tricks that royal ladies are famous for using to avoid those visible mistakes, and how you can apply those same principles to elevate your own wardrobe instantly. Because polish is not about price. It's about structure, and we can all build a better structure under our clothing if we want to. But before we dive in, I would like to invite you to subscribe if you have not yet already. Click like, hype, share, and comment on this video if you would like to. So first I thought we would take a little bit of a look at some common undergarment mistakes that really sabotage some outfits. And then we'll look at the royal dressing secrets that prevent those mistakes from coming through on camera. And finally, we'll cover a little bit about how you can fix these issues instantly in your own wardrobe. So let's begin with some of these mistakes, courtesy of Meghan Markle during her early days with the royal family, where we had, weird lines and bulges galore. I mean, like, it was just out of control. There was a lot of weird creases. We're going to get into it. We're not going to go into every single outfit that she wore or every single example of an undergarment error that I can find, because that would take so long. But each of the examples we're going to go over today are representative of consistent mistakes that she made repeatedly. They weren't one-off events. And that's an important distinction, because a one-off event is understandable. Even a second similar mistake, but in a different sort of an outfit, could be understandable. It's when there's like frequent, consistent repetition of the same mistakes over and over that clearly the person either doesn't care to try or doesn't know how to get that proper foundation for a real smooth finish. And like I said, this matters so much more and is so much more profoundly obvious if you are frequently photographed and in the public eye than it is for most people. But I am going to go into greater detail on each of these specific errors and more outfits in upcoming videos as part of our Royal Fashion Edition series here. These videos are going to be available on this channel for a limited time, and then they will be moved over to the second channel afterwards, where we have a lot more fashion content. So be sure to subscribe to both places. It's youtube.com/@KellyBeebs instead of Beebs Kelly. That's the second channel. So it's easy to remember. This first gray dress, I believe it's Roland Mouret. It's just one of the worst for foundation layer. Clearly, the undergarments just were not even thought about at all in this dress, because it is horrible, horrendous. It also just like doesn't even look like she had adequate lining under this dress. Maybe she like removed it or asked for it to be removed. I don't know what's happening exactly, but let's cover a few of the problems. Top to bottom, we have this band across here. You can see a line a couple inches below the neckline. That's obviously the fabric folded down there. The only reason why that would be showing up would be if it was inadequately made without a lining, or if the Meg bought a size that was a little too small. And it does look a little tight across the shoulders, and she has broad shoulders. So I feel like, and you can see a little bit of puckering along the seams here. So I feel like the big mistake here is that it was not big enough for her shoulder line. But we also have just a lot of wrinkling and messiness throughout this entire outfit. But today's focus is looking at foundation and undergarment. So the big problem we can see here is a cookie cutter bra situation. You can see the outline of a strapless bra perfectly, as if it were worn on the outside of the garment. You might as well have, because every single seam, you can see the underwire and the border of the fabric beneath the underwire. You can see the top, the entire thing. And it looks trashy. It looks terrible. It's distracting. It looks amateur. It's just the worst in every way. I don't see how someone could walk out of the house like this if they knew they were going to be photographed. It's horrible. We also, though, see some lumps and bumps along her stomach and hips here as well. So clearly there was no tights. Yes, I don't see any tights. So she was not wearing nylons, tights, pantyhose, whatever you like to call them. She was not wearing them. Had she worn them, it would have smoothed over her legs, her hips. These bumps and lumps here would not be visible. And it would help the fabric to lay nicer so it's not bunching up here at the waistline, because tights are a little bit slicky. And so they allow fabric to lay and swish and move over the top of your legs in a much more flattering manner. Static can happen, but if you use a static spray, it shouldn't be a problem at all. She also could have opted for a slip instead if she was really going to protest wearing nylons, and that would have helped reduce this. But overall, clearly the bra is ill-fitting and the garment is too tight, and there is no layer to blend any of it. Next, let's look at this weird occasion. Obviously, this dress was not only out of season, but way, way too tight. Every single seam is screaming. It is puckered and pulling and tight as all get out. My God, that must have been uncomfortable. But remember, we are focused on undergarments here. If you're wearing a slip and nylons, or just nylons even, your fabric does lay nicer. So if you have a dress that is a little snug, definitely don't skimp on the undergarments. Wear the nylons. Even you can get control top tights that have a tiny bit of compression around the tummy area, the hip area, which will help the situation for sure. But the main fail here, because remember, we're talking undergarments, the main fail here is in the bust line. It is very obvious in this photograph here that there is padding down here being squished, like maybe a bra with some extra padding down here. And then there is the tight band of the top of the dress, and then her chest, her bust is above that. So very clearly, that is not a normal boob situation. There's quad boob happening, and it's very obvious that she padded this bottom section and did so aggressively in order to give herself some degree of cleavage up here that it looks lumpy and strange and bizarre. Why someone would do that when going to a nursing home is completely beyond me. Most bizarre thing I've ever seen. Next, we have this terrible choice. Terrible judgment. She traumatized the people of New Zealand by wearing a sheer skirt with her panties visible. Her underwear are very clearly visible here, and it is not an attractive look. They're grand pans, they're not doing her any favors. All this needed was a slip, or if she really didn't want to do a slip, black hosiery would have been fine. Like black tights would have been just fine. Or navy tights. But honestly, for this occasion, I would say a slip is all that would have really been needed, but it would have obviously solved the problem of the bum cheeks being visible. This was, again, tacky and weird, immature, just inappropriate. And people had their kids there. You would never expect someone who is representing the Queen of England to show up with visible butt cheeks. So I would be irritated as a parent. Like, what is happening here? But let's move on. We have yet another bra mistake here. This dress was a quite nice silhouette for her, with the exception of the aggressive boat neck. But it was far too tight down the front. And you can see, again, the outline of that terrible, notorious strapless bra. And the dress itself is so tight across the chest and waist and whatnot that, again, the seams are just pulling and clinging on for dear life. And it creates all these wrinkles and puckers that just distract from the look, and it doesn't look as beautiful. Next, we have this emerald green Commonwealth Day ridiculousness. The silhouette and the design of this on paper is striking. It's the execution and the finish that let it down. You can see the fabric is clinging and riding up, and that will not happen if you're wearing a proper foundation layer because it's slick. If you're wearing a slip and or nylons, and your dress is properly lined, then it will not ride up. It will lay and it will move on top of your body like water. It will not cling and bunch and move up and create all these wrinkles. We have the terrible, ridiculous, ill-fitting, strapless bra squeezed on here. We have puckering and ill-fittingness in general and wrinkles in general, but the undergarment fails here lie in the bra being visible and the bunching and the pulling up and the riding up of the dress and the fabric in general because the lack of a base layer. Can you spot the problem with this dress? We have multiple problems going on here. This is probably one of the most embarrassing examples of lack of adequate undergarment that we've seen from Meghan Markle, because what should have been a streamlined monochrome look with absolutely no visual interruption down the front has been completely ruined by the belly button and below, creating a very awkward and embarrassing problem. We even have a panty line visible here on the side, on the hip. All of this could have been completely avoided had she not chose a spaghetti strap situation. As you can see, it's even a little tight around her chest and shoulder area here. It's just ill-fitting there. But also a smoothing base layer of some kind, whether it be a slip or nylons, it would have completely resolved this panty line, belly button, and below problem that she has. How about this one? Can you identify the undergarment fails here? This is a perfect example of the wrong bra paired with this style of shirt. This is a satiny shirt, it's shiny and it's slicky, so it has a lot of movement to it. If she had chosen a bra that had a better cup shape, a little bit more rounded and less angled cup shape, this would have looked a lot better. Here it looks kind of awkward, a little bit east-west, a little bit sloppy and messy. Or here we have a visible panty line, a really aggressive one actually. It looks like she was wearing panties that were 2 sizes too small. This could have been resolved with a better choice of panty, but also, again, a slip or nylons would have completely avoided this particular problem as well. Here it's just heavily accentuating a sort of hip divot situation just above the buttocks. To summarize overall, Meghan frequently chose garments that were far too tight, which already is going to be a mistake. That's a bad choice to buy things that are like too tight or as tight as possible, because it's going to wrinkle more, it's going to pucker, it's going to pull, it's going to be too tight in some places and too loose in others, no matter what you do. And you have to be all the more careful about your smoothing layer and your base layer. If she wanted to wear this batch of stuff, she needed to have actual compression shapewear. Now, I have discussed with you guys before, you don't have to always opt for compression shapewear. You can get shapewear a couple of sizes bigger that will just provide you with smoothing to your foundation layer. It will smooth over your bra and panty lines and give you a smooth base foundation for your garments without squeezing your body and creating bulges along the borders of your shapewear. So I recommend that. I never recommend compression shapewear, but Meghan, for making these dresses work that were too tight and the undergarments are ill-fitting, she would have needed compression shapewear because it's too tight for her. But she also had visible undergarments like bra lines especially, which is exacerbated by the far too tight garments. She also had a lot of wrinkling and puckering and pulling and bunching of the fabric that a slip, a proper base layer, would have fixed. She also opted for thinner fabrics that had errors in their fit and tailoring as well, which was an additional problem. But when it comes to those foundation and base layers, she almost never implemented those practices, and that's why things looked lumpy and bumpy, and she's still doing it to this day. These are errors that we have almost never. In fact, I can never, not once, remember seeing these same mistakes on Catherine, Princess of Wales. So let's take a closer look at how she and other royals prevent these mistakes from happening, what their tips and tricks are for a perfectly polished finish, so you can get some practical takeaways for your own wardrobe. And again, I always like to make it clear that we need to differentiate between these sorts of public scenarios and our everyday dress. Please do keep that in mind. I'm not suggesting anybody needs to go to such great lengths for their everyday wear. So when it comes to hemlines, necklines, and silhouettes, there are some conventions, if you will, that are observed within the royal women, and that includes more modest cuts. And there's a few reasons for that. They're obviously a little bit more professional, but they also photograph a little better and are less risky to have a wardrobe malfunction. Hemlines are usually at or just below the knee, and slits or kick pleats also don't tend to extend too awful high either. They typically avoid plunging necklines or overly tight silhouettes for the reasons we mentioned before. Tighter always equals a greater risk of panty lines and wrinkles and bunching, and you have to be all the more careful with your base layer with something really tight than you do with something that has a little bit of room and can move on top of your body. Structured tailoring is preferred over clingy fabrics, thinner or cheaper fabrics, and proper fit is definitely prioritized over trendy, oversized moments like the Meg favors. Sleeves are also preferred for a number of reasons. Cap sleeves or longer are common at formal engagements, and strapless and spaghetti straps are usually avoided at official duties. The reason for this is not just professionalism, but again, it allows you to have a better base layer underneath. No strapless bras are going to have as smooth of an outcome or a foundation layer as a bra with straps. It's just a fact. Because in order for a strapless bra to stay put, it has to be tight. And so it's going to have some bulges. It's going to have more obvious lines where its top and bottom and side straps are, and the back straps and whatnot. So having straps to your garments is just going to make it easier for you to have that polished finish. This is an example of Meghan Markle making a mistake in this arena. At her very first Trooping the Color, she committed a fashion faux pas for royal dressing by wearing an off-the-shoulder design. And this dress itself isn't like such an extreme breach of what is expected that it's like, oh my God, it's horrible. It's not that. It's not like that scandalous of a look. Royal women have done off-the-shoulder designs since Queen Elizabeth's time at least. Probably before that. I'm not a huge history buff, but definitely I've seen Queen Elizabeth back when she was young did some, different types of necklines and silhouettes and whatnot. But the thing is that Meghan did this before she established goodwill. She took a chance and she bent the rules before she had established goodwill with the family or the public. So it didn't come across well, and it wasn't the most flattering either, and it didn't really fully make sense for the event, for Trooping the Color specifically. It didn't really fit in. But that's not to say that off the shoulder is banned or completely out of the question. It's just that off the shoulder is much more appropriate and well suited to evening, like for example, Catherine, Princess of Wales, as you can see here. She has done off the shoulder in the evening. So the bottom line is that in these sorts of roles, off the shoulder is acceptable for evening, but not so much for daytime. Tights, stockings, and bare legs are there's a bit of a myth around this for royal dressing. It's that stockings are absolutely required and they can't be completely sheer. That's not actually true. There's nothing in the royal dress code unofficially that says you have to wear hosiery. But tights not only enhance the professionalism and polish of an outfit, but as I said, they have a very practical role in building your foundation and engineering a smooth look and a smooth finish to your garments, to your outfits. And that is that they allow the garment to glide smoothly over your body, lay nicer and hang the way they're supposed to hang, and not bunch up and ride up the same way. Nude hosiery is traditionally expected at formal engagements, and that's something that Meghan Markle frequently refused to do and even claimed felt super inauthentic in the Bloomberg interview, which is so silly. All jobs have dress codes, and what this ultimately revealed about Meghan's character was a lack of respect for her role or her job at the time. But also, as I said, tights have a role in creating a smooth finish and looking nicer. Her outfits, so many of them, would have been lots better and lots smoother and laid a lot nicer and gotten less wrinkly had she worn tights. It's not always about modesty. Sometimes it's about just making it look nice for photographs, okay? But the myth that bare legs were discouraged or forbidden even stems from Queen Elizabeth's time. She always wore tights. She came from a time when tights were the standard as well. But now we have super light, super sheer, super almost invisible tights, and even just that creates a much more finished look. But so do other shades of tights. Darker tights can sometimes really tie a look together and give it a much stronger finish. Imagine this look for a funeral without tights. It would look horrible, horribly out of place. Now, for royal ladies, but also anybody who's, going to have an engagement where they are outside and going to be photographed, you have to take into consideration things like wind and preventing wardrobe malfunctions. This also counts when just like moving about your day. If something's too tight, it's harder to move in and you have to rearrange more. And if a garment's ill-fitting or you don't have the right base layer, you're going to do a lot more fiddling with your outfit than if you build it on top of a really good, strong foundation that's well thought. But a practical and crucial detail that cannot be overlooked is the hemlines of skirts and dresses. Royal ladies often weighted their hems with very, very tiny weights sewn into the bottom of skirts and coats and things like that to prevent them from blowing up in the wind, but also to just help them lay nicer. Slightly thicker fabrics also help garments hold structure in outdoor engagements, and a slip or other sort of base layer, like for example a romper or a tank that's not compression but rather smoothing, is a seriously underrated tool for creating a polished and smooth look. So if the goal is to have a smooth finish and something that's going to stay looking nice throughout the day, throughout movement and sitting and standing, the takeaways here, the practical takeaways, are to opt for thicker fabrics, things that are lined, and it's better to buy something that has a little bit too much room than that is too tight in some places. As for undergarments, the basic formula, depending on the situation, is of course your standard panty and bra, and make sure that your bra is well fitted. If it's too tight or the cup is too small, then you will get quad boob. You will have boob exploding out of the top. You'll have bulging along the sides and along the back, and you don't want that. You want a bra that's going to cradle your bosom properly and not cut in anywhere, ideally. But you still need it to stay put. So there is a fine line there of getting it tight enough to not move around, but not so tight that there's a lot of bulging. And that can be really tricky. If you struggle with this, try long line bras. They have a lot more fabric down the sides, and that can just help create a smoother finish and reduce the amount of lines or bulging that you have. And it's more coverage across the back and sides, which sometimes can help hold a bra in place better. But a lot of women, myself included in the past, wore too small of a cup. And we're buying small cups with larger bands, when in reality what you need is a smaller band and a larger cup. So it has so many advantages to really finding the right bra for you. It's one of the biggest things for a lady when it comes to her wardrobe. Honestly, if you've been through something or you're ready to revamp your wardrobe, I always say you should start with your undergarments and your bras, because those are for you and also for your foundation, for your base. And then the clothes will look better on top if you have the right undergarments underneath. But anyway, your basic bra and panty, obviously, starting point. And then nylons or tights, whatever you call them, and some sort of smoothing layer on top of that to blend over the bra lines and the top waistband from your nylons or tights if you're wearing them. So that can be a slip, it could be a tank, it could be a romper. Those are like bike shorts and a tank top in one. Camisole. It could be a half slip or a full slip. Just something that blends over your bra lines as well as and through down to the hip. If you're going to skip nylons or tights, definitely do go for a slip or some sort of a romper that has bike shorts. Even if you're like wearing a dress where maybe you don't feel like where it's looser up here or something, and you don't feel like you need anything to smooth over the bra area, so you don't feel like you need a tank or a full slip, then still consider at least some like bicycle shorts or something, because that still helps blend over the hip and waistline and the panty lines. I hope you enjoyed today's fashion edition. Leave your comments below. Thank you for joining me, and I hope you have a happy day ahead. I'll see you next time. Bye.